He only did the right thing, drove his boss home when she was too drunk to stand. But the next morning, when she came downstairs wearing clothes that weren't hers, one phone call changed everything. For a black man, a single father, there's no room for misunderstanding. One wrong word from her could cost him his job, his reputation, his daughter. So what did she do that morning? And why did it almost destroy his life? Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We love seeing how far these stories travel. Harry Thompson checked his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. 6:45. The company's annual party was in full swing around him, laughter and clinking glasses filling the upscale restaurant, but his mind was 15 miles away at Jefferson Elementary School, where his daughter Ella would take the stage in just over an hour. She had reminded him every single day for the past 2 weeks. "Daddy, you have to sit in the front row, promise me." And he had promised, the way he always did, because keeping promises to his little girl was the one thing in this world he refused to compromise on. For 6 years, Harry had built his reputation at Harrison Financial brick by brick. Senior analyst, impeccable record, never late, never absent, never the subject of office gossip. He understood something that his white colleagues never had to think about, that for a black man in corporate America there was no margin for error. One misstep, one misunderstanding, one moment of poor judgment, and everything he had worked for could vanish overnight. So he kept his head down, did his job, went home to his daughter, and stayed invisible in all the ways that mattered. Tonight was supposed to be simple. Show his face at the party for exactly 1 hour, shake the right hands, then slip out in time for Ella's performance. But as Harry scanned the room for an exit route, his eyes landed on something that made his stomach tighten. Cara Carter was drunk. Not tipsy, not a little loose from champagne. Drunk in a way that made people look away, the kind of drunk that would become office gossip by Monday morning. Cara was his direct supervisor, the director of their department, and until tonight, Harry had never seen her as anything other than perfectly composed, sharp suits, sharper decisions. The kind of woman who commanded respect without raising her voice. But something had changed in the past few weeks. The divorce, people whispered. 15 years of marriage ended because her husband had been sleeping with a 26-year-old marketing coordinator from his firm. Harry watched as Cara reached for another glass of wine, her movements unsteady, her eyes glazed and unfocused. A few of their colleagues glanced her way, then quickly found somewhere else to look. No one wanted to be the person who dealt with the boss when she was falling apart. 6:52. He needed to leave now if he was going to make it. Harry grabbed his coat from the back of his chair and started toward the exit. He was 3 steps from the door when he heard the crash. Cara had knocked over her purse, its contents scattering across the polished floor. She dropped to her knees to gather them, and Harry could see her hands shaking as she fumbled with lipstick tubes and scattered receipts. When she tried to stand, she stumbled and nearly fell. A waiter rushed over, asked if she needed help. Cara waved him away with a slurred, "I'm fine," that convinced no one. Harry stood frozen at the door, his car keys already in his hand. This wasn't his problem. Cara was a grown woman, his boss, someone with more power and resources than he would ever have. She could call a cab. She could ask someone else. She could figure it out. But as he watched her struggle to her feet, he saw something that made his chest ache. She was searching through her purse with increasing desperation, pulling out her wallet, her compact mirror, a pack of tissues. Her phone screen was cracked and dark. Dead battery. And from the way she kept digging through the same pockets over and over, it was clear she couldn't find what she was looking for. Her keys. Harry glanced around the room. The other executives had conveniently migrated to the far corner of the restaurant. The junior staff were pretending to be deep in conversation. No one was going to help her. He thought about Ella waiting backstage in her costume, searching the audience for his face. He thought about what it would mean if he left Cara here, a woman too drunk to stand, without her phone, without her keys, without anyone willing to take responsibility for her. And he thought about what it would mean if he stayed, a black man, a subordinate, taking his drunk white female boss somewhere private. Every instinct he had developed over 38 years of navigating a world that was quick to judge and slow to forgive screamed at him to walk away. This was exactly the kind of situation he had spent his entire life avoiding, the kind where intentions didn't matter, where the optics could destroy you before the truth ever had a chance. But Harry also thought about his daughter and the kind of man he wanted her to believe he was. He walked back to where Cara was still swaying on her feet. "Ms. Carter." He kept his voice low, professional. "Do you have someone I can call to pick you up?" She looked at him with glassy eyes, struggling to focus. "Harry, why are you still here?" "Do you have someone I can call?" he repeated. "Family? A friend?" Cara shook her head slowly, then winced at the movement. "No one here. She's in Boston. My phone is dead." "What about your address? I can call you a cab." She stared at him blankly, then laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "I just moved, last week. I can't remember the new address. It's in my phone, which is dead." Another laugh, this one closer to a sob. "God, I'm pathetic." Harry felt the weight of his car keys in his pocket. 7:03. Ella would be going on at 8. He could leave. No one would blame him. No one would even know. But he would know. "Okay," he said quietly, more to himself than to her. "Okay." He pulled out his own phone and dialed a number he knew by heart. Angela, the woman who watched Ella after school, picked up on the second ring. "Angela, I need a huge favor. Can you take Ella to her performance tonight? Something came up at work and I can't make it." The silence on the other end lasted only a second, but it felt like an eternity. "Of course, Harry, but she's going to be disappointed." "I know." His voice cracked on the words. "Just tell her I love her. Tell her I'll watch the video 100 times. Tell her I'm sorry." He ended the call and turned back to Cara, who was now leaning heavily against a table. "Come on," he said, taking her arm to steady her. "I'm going to take you somewhere safe." She didn't resist as he guided her toward the door, her heels clicking unevenly on the marble floor. "Where are we going?" she mumbled. Harry didn't answer. The truth was, he only had one option. Her phone was dead, she didn't know her own address, and he couldn't leave her alone in a hotel room in this condition. He was going to take her to the only place he could keep an eye on her until she sobered up, his home. The drive took 20 minutes, and Cara drifted in and out of consciousness in the passenger seat. Halfway there, she suddenly grabbed his arm. "Stop the car!" she gasped. "I'm going to be sick!" Harry pulled over to the side of the road just in time. Cara stumbled out and vomited onto the grass, her body heaving while she gripped the car door for support. Harry found a bottle of water in the back seat and handed it to her when she was done. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice raw. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." He helped her back into the car and kept driving. When he pulled into his driveway, the house was dark. Angela must have already left with Ella. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Somewhere across town, his daughter was about to perform the biggest moment of her 8-year-old life, and she would look into the audience and not find her father's face. He had done the right thing. He kept telling himself that as he helped Cara out of the car, as he guided her up the front steps, as he unlocked the door to his modest 2-bedroom house. The right thing. But sitting in the darkness of his living room, listening to a stranger's breathing from the couch while his daughter performed without him, Harry couldn't help but wonder if the right thing was going to cost him everything. Harry didn't sleep that night. After settling Cara on the couch, he found a clean blanket in the hallway closet and draped it over her. Her silk dress was wrinkled and stained from the evening's ordeal, so he left one of his old t-shirts and a pair of sweatpants folded on the coffee table, along with a glass of water and 2 aspirin. He noticed her phone on the floor where it had fallen from her purse. The screen was cracked, but the phone itself seemed functional, just dead. He plugged it into a charger near the couch so she would have it when she woke up. Then he sat down at the kitchen table and wrote a note on a piece of paper torn from Ella's homework notebook. "Miss Carter, you're at my house. You had too much to drink at the company party and couldn't get home safely. I'm sleeping in my daughter's room. If you need anything, knock on the door at the end of the hall. Harry!" He placed the note next to the water glass, positioning it where she would see it the moment she opened her eyes. Then he turned off the lights and retreated to the hallway, leaving the bathroom light on so she wouldn't be disoriented if she woke up in the middle of the night. At 9:30, his phone buzzed. A text from Angela. "She did amazing. Standing ovation. But she kept looking for you. I recorded the whole thing. Sending it now." Harry stared at those words until his vision blurred. A video file came through a moment later, but he couldn't bring himself to watch it. Not yet. He typed back a simple thank you, then set the phone face down on the kitchen counter. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway came at 10:45. Harry was at the front door before Angela could even knock, stepping outside and pulling it closed behind him so the noise wouldn't wake Cara. Angela was a retired school teacher in her 60s who had been watching Ella since she was 3 years old. She looked at Harry now with an expression that wasn't quite judgment, but wasn't quite understanding either. "She fell asleep in the car," Angela said quietly, gesturing to where Ella was slumped in the back seat. "Wore herself out with all that performing. Thank you for doing this. I know it was last minute." Angela studied his face for a long moment. "Everything okay, Harry?" "Work emergency," he said, the lie tasting bitter on his tongue. It couldn't wait. She didn't press further, just nodded and helped him transfer Ella from the car to his arms. His daughter stirred slightly, her small hands finding their familiar grip around his neck, her face burrowing into his shoulder. "Daddy?" she murmured, still half asleep. "I'm here, baby. Let's get you to bed." He carried her inside, moving quietly past the living room where Cara's silhouette was visible on the couch, but Ella's eyes fluttered open at exactly the wrong moment, and she lifted her head to look around. "Daddy, who's that lady?" Harry's heart stuttered. "She's someone from my work, sweetheart. She got sick and needed a place to rest for the night." Ella squinted at the couch, then looked back at her father with the unfiltered curiosity of an 8-year-old. "Is she going to be okay?" "She'll be fine by morning. Now let's get you to bed." He carried her to her room, helped her change into pajamas, and tucked her in with the stuffed elephant she'd had since she was a baby. When he leaned down to kiss her forehead, Ella grabbed his hand. "You missed my song, Daddy." The words were simple, matter of fact, delivered without accusation. That somehow made them worse. "I know, baby, I'm so sorry. But Angela recorded it, and I'm going to watch it first thing tomorrow morning. I promise." Ella was quiet for a moment. "Okay," she finally said, and the easy forgiveness in her voice nearly broke him. Harry pulled a thin blanket from her closet and spread it on the floor beside her bed. He lay there in the darkness, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars Ella had stuck on the ceiling 2 years ago, and listened to her breathing slowly deepen into sleep. In the living room, a stranger lay on his couch, and every minute that passed wound the knot in his stomach tighter. Morning came too quickly. Harry woke to gray light filtering through the curtains and the sound of movement from the living room. He checked his phone, 6:53, then carefully extracted himself from the blanket and crept to the door. Cara was sitting up on the couch, her head in her hands. Even from the hallway, Harry could see her shoulders shaking. He should give her a moment. Let her collect herself, read the note, understand the situation before he appeared. That would be the smart thing to do. But before he could retreat, Cara's phone, now charged from the outlet where he had plugged it in, lit up on the coffee table. She grabbed it with trembling hands and dialed a number. Harry froze in the hallway, close enough to hear every word. "Rachel?" Cara's voice was raw, barely above a whisper. "Rachel, I don't know what happened." A tinny voice responded on the other end, too quiet for Harry to make out the words. "I woke up in someone's house. A man's house. I'm wearing clothes that aren't mine." Cara's breathing grew ragged. "I don't remember anything after the party. I don't remember how I got here. I don't know if... Rachel, I don't know what happened to me last night." Harry's blood turned to ice. He could hear Rachel's voice rising on the other end, sharp and urgent. Questions being fired in rapid succession. "His name is Harry. He works for me." Cara was crying now, the words coming out in fragments. "I don't remember getting in his car. I don't remember coming here. I woke up and I was wearing his clothes, and I can't. Rachel, what if something happened?" Harry stood perfectly still, his back pressed against the hallway wall, and felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. He knew how this would play out. He had known from the moment he made the decision to bring her here. But hearing it spoken aloud, hearing the fear in her voice, the implicit accusation buried beneath the confusion, made it real in a way that turned his stomach. A black man, a subordinate, his drunk white female boss in his house, wearing his clothes with no memory of how she got there. It didn't matter what actually happened. It didn't matter that he had slept on his daughter's floor. It didn't matter that he had left a note, left water, left aspirin, done everything he could think of to make sure she felt safe when she woke up. What mattered was the story that would be told, and he had no control over that story. Rachel's voice was louder now, and Harry caught fragments. "Stay right there. Don't leave. Calling the police. Get on a flight." "I don't know if I should do that," Cara was saying. "I don't know if anything actually... I just can't remember, Rachel. I can't remember." "Daddy?" Harry spun around. Ella was standing in the doorway of her room, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Good morning, sweetheart." He fought to keep his voice steady. "Let's get you some breakfast, okay? Nice and quiet because our guest is still waking up." But Ella had already spotted Cara through the living room doorway. Before Harry could stop her, she padded down the hallway in her bare feet. "Are you feeling better today, ma'am?" Cara looked up, startled, the phone still pressed to her ear. Her eyes were red and puffy, mascara smeared beneath them, and for a moment, she just stared at the little girl standing in front of her. What? Daddy said you were sick last night." Ella tilted her head to the side. "My daddy makes really good soup when I'm sick. Do you want him to make you some?" Cara's gaze shifted from Ella to Harry, who had followed his daughter into the living room. Something flickered across her face, confusion, then calculation, then something else Harry couldn't quite read. "Rachel, hold on." She lowered the phone. "You have a daughter?" "Yes." Harry put his hands on Ella's shoulders, resisting the urge to pull her behind him like a shield. "This is Ella." "I'm 8, Ella added helpfully. "I was in a play last night. Daddy couldn't come because he was helping you." The words hung in the air like a verdict. Cara's expression shifted again. And Harry watched her take in the details she had been too panicked to notice before. The small house decorated with a child's artwork, the refrigerator covered in school photos and report cards, the stack of picture books on the coffee table, and then her eyes found the note on the coffee table, half hidden beneath the glass of water. She picked it up and read it slowly, her lips moving slightly as she traced the words. "Rachel, I'll call you back." She ended the call before her friend could respond. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Cara looked up at Harry with an expression he had never seen on her face before. Not in 6 years of working under her, not in countless meetings and performance reviews and late nights at the office. She looked lost. "Harry," her voice was hoarse. I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth." He nodded, even though every muscle in his body was tensed for impact. "Did we... last night, did we..." She couldn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. Harry kept his voice steady, even though his heart was hammering against his ribs. "No, nothing happened. You were very drunk at the party. No one was helping you. Your phone was dead and you couldn't remember your new address, and I couldn't leave you there alone. So I brought you here." He gestured toward the couch. "I left clean clothes for you because your dress was ruined. I wrote that note so you would know where you were when you woke up. I plugged in your phone so you could call someone in the morning. And I slept on the floor in my daughter's room. That's everything. That's the whole story." Cara stared at him, searching his face for something, a lie, a tell, a crack in the story. "The whole story," she repeated quietly. "The whole story." She looked down at the note in her hands again, then at Ella, then back at Harry. And he watched her do the math. The children's books, the school photos, the little girl offering soup to a stranger. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why did you help me? You could have just left." Harry thought about the question. He thought about all the reasons he had considered walking away, all the risks he had calculated in those few seconds at the restaurant door. "Because my daughter was watching," he said simply. "Not last night. She was at her play. But in my head, she's always watching. And I didn't want to be the kind of father who leaves someone in trouble just because helping them might be inconvenient." He took a breath. "But I need you to understand something, Ms. Carter. I don't have the luxury of being misunderstood. What you say next, to your friend, to anyone, it matters. It matters more than you probably realize." Cara's face crumpled, and for a terrible moment Harry thought she was going to cry again. But instead, she just sat there, clutching the note he had written, looking at the little girl who had asked if she wanted soup. "I think," she said slowly, "I think I need a minute." Harry nodded. He took Ella's hand and led her toward the kitchen. "Come on, sweetheart, let's make some breakfast." Behind him, he heard Cara pick up her phone again, but she didn't dial. She just sat there, holding it, staring at the screen like it held all the answers to questions she wasn't sure how to ask. And Harry stood in his kitchen, pouring cereal for his daughter, and waited for a woman he barely knew to decide his fate. The kitchen felt smaller than usual. Harry stood at the counter, pouring milk over Ella's cereal, and his hands were not quite steady. From the living room came the sound of footsteps, slow and uncertain. Harry kept his eyes on the cereal bowl, on his daughter, on anything except the woman who was now standing in the doorway. Cara had been walking through the house and he knew what she had seen. The refrigerator covered in Ella's artwork, crayon drawings of houses and flowers, and stick figures holding hands. The small bookshelf in the hallway stuffed with picture books and school projects. The framed photos on every surface, Ella's first day of kindergarten, Ella missing her 2 front teeth, Ella and Harry at the county fair with cotton candy stuck to their faces, and at the end of the hallway, visible through the open door of Ella's room, the thin blanket still spread on the floor where he had slept. Harry finally looked up. Cara was standing in the doorway, and something in her expression had changed. The panic was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like shame. "I need to make a phone call," she said quietly. "And then, I think we should talk." She stepped back into the living room and Harry heard her dial. "Rachel." Cara's voice was different now, clearer, steadier. "I need you to listen to me. I remember what happened. And nothing happened. He helped me get home safely when no one else would. That's all." Harry couldn't hear Rachel's response, but he could imagine it. The skepticism, the lawyer's instinct to assume the worst, to protect her friend from her own judgment. "I'm sure." Cara's voice grew firmer. "Rachel, listen to me. He has an 8-year-old daughter. He missed her school performance last night, her first time in a lead role, because he was making sure I was safe. He slept on the floor of his daughter's bedroom. He left me a note so I wouldn't be scared when I woke up. He even plugged in my phone so I could call for help in the morning. And I almost... Her voice cracked. I almost destroyed his life because I was too panicked to think straight. A long silence. Yes, I'm positive. No, I'm not being coerced. Rachel, he's standing in the kitchen making breakfast for his little girl. The only thing this man is guilty of is being decent when he had every reason not to be. Another silence, shorter this time. Thank you. And Rachel, don't ever let me drink like that again. She ended the call. Harry stayed where he was, one hand resting on the counter. He didn't trust himself to move, to speak, to do anything that might shatter the fragile thing that was happening in the next room. Cara appeared in the kitchen doorway again. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying anymore. She looked at Harry with an expression he couldn't quite name. Gratitude, maybe, or regret, or something more complicated than either. I owe you an apology, she said. More than an apology. I don't even know if there's a word for what I owe you. Harry set down the milk carton carefully. You were scared. You woke up in a strange place with no memory of how you got there. That would terrify anyone. That's not an excuse. Cara shook her head. I know what could have happened if I had said the wrong thing to Rachel. If she had called the police before I had a chance to think clearly. I know what that could have meant for you. But you didn't. But I almost did. And you knew I might. And you helped me anyway. She took a breath. Why? Why would you take that risk? Harry thought about the question. He had been asking himself the same thing since the moment he'd turned his car toward home instead of leaving her at the restaurant. Because I couldn't live with the alternative, he finally said. Because my daughter is going to grow up in this world, and I want her to believe that when someone needs help, you help them, even when it's hard, even when it's risky, even when the smart thing would be to walk away. He looked at Ella, who was quietly eating her cereal and pretending not to listen. I want her to believe that because I need to believe it too. I've spent my whole life being careful, being invisible, making sure I never give anyone a reason to doubt me. And somewhere along the way, I forgot that being good isn't just about avoiding mistakes. It's about choosing to do the right thing, even when no one would blame you for doing nothing. Cara was quiet for a long moment. Then she walked over to the table and knelt down so she was at Ella's eye level. Ella, right? That's your name? Ella nodded, a spoonful of cereal halfway to her mouth. I want you to know something, Cara said. Your daddy is one of the best people I've ever met. And I'm very sorry that he missed your play because of me. Ella considered this with the gravity only an 8-year-old can muster. That's okay. Angela recorded it on her phone and sent it to Daddy. He can watch it whenever he wants. She looked at her father. Can we watch it now, Daddy? I want to show the lady my solo. Harry pulled out his phone and found the video Angela had sent the night before. He hadn't been able to bring himself to watch it then, but now, with Ella bouncing excitedly in her chair and Cara standing quietly beside him, he pressed play. The video was shaky, filmed from somewhere in the middle of the audience, but Harry could see his daughter clearly. She was wearing a costume made of green felt and cardboard leaves, and she was singing about the importance of recycling with the absolute conviction that only elementary school performers possess. And then, near the end of the song, Ella looked directly at the camera. She smiled and waved, just a tiny wave, almost like she knew her father would be watching later. Daddy, Video Ella said, breaking character entirely, I know you're busy, but I love you. The audience laughed. Angela's voice could be heard saying, Oh, honey? And then the video ended. Harry realized his cheeks were wet. That's my favorite part, Ella said matter-of-factly. I added it myself. Mrs. Patterson said it wasn't in the script, but I told her my daddy might not be there, so I wanted to say hi just in case. Cara stood up slowly. She looked at Harry, then at Ella. then at the modest kitchen with its crayon drawings and its school photos and its evidence of a life built on love and sacrifice. "I should go," she said quietly. "I've taken enough of your morning. But Harry, thank you. For everything. I won't forget it." He called her a cab, and she left wearing his old t-shirt and sweatpants because her dress was still ruined. She looked nothing like the polished executive he had worked under for 6 years, and somehow that made her seem more human than she ever had before. The following Monday, Harry walked into the office expecting whispers, expecting sidelong glances and HR requests and the slow unraveling of everything he had built. Instead, there was nothing. No rumors, no gossip, no knowing looks. Cara had kept her word. The weeks that followed were strange in ways Harry couldn't quite articulate. Nothing dramatic changed. No promotions, no special treatment, no public acknowledgement of what had happened that night. But something had shifted between them, something subtle and real. When Cara looked at him in meetings, there was a recognition there that hadn't existed before. When she assigned projects, she sought his input in ways she never had. Not favoritism, exactly, just respect, the kind that had to be earned. On a Thursday afternoon in early December, Cara stopped by his desk. Harry looked up from his spreadsheet, surprised. She rarely came down to the analyst floor. "Does Ella have any more performances coming up?" she asked. The question caught him off guard. "The Christmas play, 2 weeks from now. She's playing an angel this time." Cara nodded. "Don't miss it. Whatever happens, whatever comes up, don't miss it." Harry understood what she was really saying. It wasn't about the play. It was about the promise, the choice, the thing he had sacrificed that night to help a woman who had given him nothing but professional distance for 6 years. "I won't," he said. "I'll be in the front row." Cara smiled, a real smile, the first he had ever seen from her. "Good. She deserves that." She walked away, and Harry watched her go, and something that had been clenched tight in his chest for weeks finally loosened. That evening, Harry came home to find Ella waiting at the door, her angel costume clutched in her hands. "Daddy, Mrs. Patterson says we need to practice every night. Will you help me?" "Of course, baby. Let's see your wings." Later, after they had run through her lines a dozen times and eaten dinner and read 2 chapters of her favorite book, Ella looked up at him with serious eyes. "Daddy, are you sad that you missed my other play?" Harry pulled her close. "A little. But I'm proud of you. So proud. And I promise you something. Next time, I'm going to be right there in the front row. Nothing is going to stop me." Ella grinned. "I'll wave at you from the stage." "You better." She fell asleep with her head on his shoulder, and Harry sat there in the quiet of their small house, holding his daughter, thinking about everything that had happened and everything that could have happened, and the thin, fragile line between the two. For years, he had lived his life trying to be invisible, trying to avoid mistakes, trying to never give anyone a reason to question his character. He had believed that safety lay in smallness, in caution, in never putting himself in a position where he could be misunderstood. But that night at the party, he had made a different choice, a dangerous choice, and somehow, against all odds, it had led him here, to this moment, with his daughter in his arms and a future that felt, for the first time in years, like something more than just survival. Maybe the world wasn't fair, maybe it never would be, but maybe, just maybe, there were still people in it who could see him for who he really was, and maybe that was enough to keep trying.